May I have your kind attention, please, everyone? Good morning, everyone. So this session's title is A Man of Steel, The Legacy of Ratan Tata. This is the 25th session of this particular festival. Few names in Indian business history evoke the same reverence and administration as Ratan Tata, a leader par excellence, a visionary who redefined the contours of Indian industry, and a man whose humility is as legendary as his achievements. Ratan Tata's legacy is not just about building businesses, it's about building dreams, inspiring generations, and proving that ethics and excellence go hand in hand. Today in this special session, A Man of Steel, The Legacy of Ratan Tata, we have the privilege of diving deep into his extraordinary journey, exploring the values that shaped him and the impact he continues to have on India and beyond. Guiding us through this riveting conversation are two remarkable minds, Dr. Soma Das and Dr. Thomas Matthew, each a master storyteller in their own right, each with a unique lens through which they see the world of business, leadership, and history. Our first speaker, Dr. Soma Das, is a name well known in the world of business journalism and literature. She has spent years uncovering the stories behind India's biggest corporate successes and unraveling the personalities that drive them. Her book, The Reluctant Billionaire, a gripping biography of Dilip Sanghvi, was not just a bestseller but also a Tata Literature Awards nominee, praised for its depth and storytelling. Her earlier work, Something of a Mocktail, was a national bestseller, and she is currently penning 2 more books commissioned by Penguin Random House. Beyond her literary pursuits, Soma Das has been a senior business journalist with the Economic Times and the Financial Express, where she navigated India's complex corporate and economic landscape. Since 2018, she has expanded her expertise to international development, policy research, and strategy, making her one of the most insightful voices in contemporary business discourse. In conversation with her today is the multifaceted Thomas Matthew, sir, a man whose career has spanned public administration, corporate strategy, international diplomacy, and even art and photography. A former Indian Administrative Service officer, Thomas has worked at the highest levels of governance and policy making, offering him a rare behind-the-scenes view of India's economic and strategic evolution. His books, including In Search of Congruence, India-US Relations under the Obama administration, showcase his deep understanding of geopolitics. Meanwhile, his works Winged Wonders of Rashtrapati Bhavan and Abode Under the Dome were not just acclaimed publications, but diplomatic gifts from the President of India to world leaders like Barack Obama, Vladimir Putin, and Theresa May. But his talents don't end there. Thomas is also a passionate wildlife photographer, having captured over 500 species of birds, and a historian of India's rich artistic heritage with his work on the paintings of Ashoka Hall, published by the Lalit Kala Academy. With such distinguished voices leading our discussion, this session promises to be not just an exploration of Ratan Tata's business acumen, but also a deeper reflection on the values of leadership, resilience, and ethical capitalism. So get ready for a thought-provoking, inspiring, and power-packed session as we welcome Dr. Soma Das in conversation with Dr. Thomas Matthew. So I request the speakers to kindly come to the dais. Okay, okay. Yes. So upon the request of the speakers, we're waiting 5 more minutes for the participants to gather for the session.
De Michel Beaucaire sur une musique de Charles du...
your kind attention again. Without further delay, I would like to invite Dr. Soma Das and Dr. Thomas Matthew, sir, to the stage and kindly start the session. Sir, ma'am, please.
So very good morning to Dr. Matthew, who's really embarked on one of the, can I say, very, very audacious and extremely ambitious exercise of writing a slice of India's corporate history. Because writing a biography on Ratan Tata is attempting nothing less than that. But you know, since most of us here are students, I would like to just spend a minute on what Tatas could mean for you. See, morning, I could tell from my life, if I got up in the morning, I had my breakfast and tea. The tea could be Tata and the salt in my breakfast could be Tata's. I took out my sari, which is a Tanira sari. It is a Tata sari from the stable. And then I took the lift. It could be the steel of the lift could be Tata's steel from Tata Steel. Taking a vehicle, it could be a Tata Nexon. I passed two Tata motor showroom in this 2 kilometers journey. And if I'm not given my income tax, I could get a reminder that's powered by TCS. And if, for instance, if I'm late, I'm looking at my watch, it could be a Titan Tata watch. And this is just 3 hours, first 3 hours of my waking life. This is the impact that industrial group has on Indians' lives. We may be knowing it, noticing it, not noticing it. But this is how integral they are to our daily life. So when Dr. Matthews attempted, I'm sure it would have been a flood of information, and to slice and dice and analyze and put it together is a task hugely, hugely challenging. So to begin with, Dr. Matthew, would you prefer to be there because you will be? Okay. Yeah, sure. So because we have so many young people out here, I think the assumption is that when people are born into wealth and privilege, they have everything very easy. What maybe we don't understand is that there is the sheer complexity they are born into could be overwhelming for those children who are born into so much wealth. Well, how do you assess Ratan's childhood in this context?
Thank you, Soma, for those questions. Now, let me begin by saying that I am extremely happy to be in this beautiful town and for the opportunity to present the life of Mr. Ratan Tata, who many people say is an enigma wrapped in a mystery. In many ways, that's true. Now, the first question which he has asked me would require me to go back to the early 19th that is earlier 20th century. Mr. Tata was born into wealth, unparalleled wealth. He stayed with his grandmother, his father and mother in what is called Tata House. Tata House at the time was perhaps the only house which had a lift at the time. And it had unimaginable luxury in it. The replica of the pillars of the house was brought in from Paris for approval of Sir Ratan Tata. And it had some of the most magnificent artifacts which Sir Ratan Tata and his wife, Lady Navjbai Tata, collected over a period of time. He was in the crucible of luxury, but there is a paradox here. Mr. Tata did not love that luxury. His mother used to send him the huge Cadillac's 12-cylinder, you heard about this Cadillac luxury car, 12-cylinder cars to pick him up from school. But Mr. Tata would not sit in the car, would hide behind the bushes and run back home because luxury embarrassed him. Yet he had 40 servants at home or 40 help at home. So that's the kind of luxury he was brought up in. But as I said, Mr. Tata is the best example of leading a paradoxical life. Though he was born into the lap of luxury, he lived in it, he disliked it. And you will see this as a part of his character. Now, I'm going to show you some images never seen. And let me start with Mr. Tata with his mother and brother Jimmy. Can I have slide number 1, please? What happened? But you had that open. Okay. I've done a dry run for him. Open that and go to number 1. All right. I'm just going to show you. Would you like me to come and help you out? Okay, go to photo 1, please. Q1 first. Okay. This is, I'm going to show you so that I'm trying to take you through the life of Mr. Tata as much as possible. And then I'll take you through his business achievements. On the right of his mother is Ratan Tata, and on the left is Jimmy Tata. Now, to give you an idea of the luxury in which they lived, can I go to slide number 2? This enlarges, please. This is the entrance to Tata House, which was completed in 1960. Go to the next one, please. This is the formal reception room of Tata House. Go to the next one, please. And this is the study. Mr. Tata used to tell me they used to have leather-bound ladders which would get you to the top to pick up the books. Okay. And Mr. Tata was actually brought up by his grandmother called Lady Navjbai Tata. And she and her husband, Sir Ratan Tata, lived in the York House. York House, that's near London, adjacent to River Thames. And they say it is one of the most luxurious houses UK has ever seen. And I'm going to show you a party at York House. Can I go to the next one? This is a party thrown by Sir Ratan Tata and his wife, Lady Navjbai Tata. And during this party, there were 1,500 guests of the most influential, including King George and the Queen, had attended this. So you can imagine, think about his life, so much of luxury. Normally, you will expect him also to imbibe the weakness for luxury, but here it was paradoxical. The more he was put into the lap of luxury, he hated luxury. So that was his life. And life gets complicated because his mother decides to leave his father, leaving the father distraught, embarrassed, and Mr. Ratan Tata and his brother outclassed, quote unquote, Mr. Tata in school. Outclassed because even today, if your father or mother separates and would find another partner, in school you could be poked fun at. So Mr. Tata had no friends in school except for the famous Zubin Mehta and his brother. So in the lap of luxury, you have Mr. Ratan Tata embarrassed by it, at a certain point of time, having to face the, reprisal, verbal, when I say, the verbal insults of his classmates, becoming extraordinarily insecure, that he used to tag along with his father. That is, I'm talking about a 7-year-old boy tagging along with his father to his parties, because he feared that his father also will walk away from him. And the father was distraught because, in the 1940s, as it is now, when somebody's wife walks out on somebody, you can imagine the kind of trauma you would have felt, insulted. And this had its impact in the society, and especially in the manner in which Mr. Tata had faced the friends in school and everywhere in the society where he went. With this, I conclude my answer for the first question.
Yeah, so in the event of this very painful separation that his parents went through, I think he got very close to Lady Tata, the grandmother. And the grandmother has had very seminal influence on his life, which kind of stays long after he's grown up and even in business. Could you share a bit on these early influences?
Can I have the next slide? If you get the light off, you can see this image. This is Lady Navjbai Tata, painting done in 1903 in London. One of the most famous artists painted this, tall. And it is there in the Chhatrapati Shivaji Museum in Mumbai. And this is the only photograph which takes a full page of my book. And I told Mr. Tata that, being a photographer, that I would take this photo. So I went to the museum, spoke to the chief secretary, had this photo removed from where it is, and this is a photo of the image of the painting. So she was the central figure in Mr. Tata's life. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. In fact, Mr. Tata says she was his universe. He used to sit at her feet and she used to tell him stories about how Mahatma Gandhi used to go and live in York House. And Lady Navjbai Tata was, quote unquote, ramrod straight in terms of ethics, morality, what is right and what is wrong. Mr. Tata would say sorry if he made a mistake, and he would say that to his help, the workers, the drivers, or anybody for that matter. That is because he told me that his grandmother would apologize to a servant or a cook if she found that she made a mistake and blamed him without reason. And she would leave a small sorry note, I am sorry for what I did, under the door. So Mr. Tata, whatever he is, and also in terms of philanthropy, she gave up all her wealth for philanthropy and sustainable philanthropy. When I mean, it's not patchy philanthropy. You give money to somebody, that's patchy philanthropy. That is because it doesn't equip that person to lead a more fruitful life, because you don't teach him or her the techniques of earning money, but you only fulfill a day or a week. So that form of sustainable philanthropy also imbibed from her, is his grandmother.
Dr. Matthew, we have a lot of students here, and you know how it is in India. Parents will sometimes force their dream upon their children, which they couldn't fulfill. I understand Ratan went through similar kind of parental pressure. He wanted to be an architect. His dad wanted him to be a chartered accountant. but him being the stubborn guy that he was, he found a way out. Could you tell us how he handled that pressure?
Yeah, that is very interesting. You know, Mr. Tata loved architecture, and he always loved to design houses. So even when he was a student, he used to make design of buildings which he saw and give it to his mother, who used to carefully bind them and keep them in the cupboard. So as soon as he finished his school, he wanted to go to the United States. So then came two questions. One, what to study and where to study. The father had studied to be a chartered accountant in England, and like all fathers think that their professions are the best, said, you need to study to be a chartered accountant. Which he initially said, no, I would like to be an architect. The father said, no. Then came the question, where to study. Those days, the mecca of education was Oxford, Cambridge, in the UK. And Mr. Tata had fallen in love with the US because when he was about 10, 11, he had gone to the United States and stayed with one of the representatives of India in the UN. And he somehow fell in love with the United States. So therefore, he was faced with two issues. One, what to finally choose for his education and where to go. He was stubborn, but he doesn't show it. Okay, Mr. Tata looks very calm. He doesn't get angry like most of us. Or even if he gets angry, he doesn't show it. That is his capability. And when he's really upset, he will bite his lips. That's all what he will do. So, as a compromise, his father, who was also enamored by mechanical engineering. That is because there's a company called Kaiser Steel, which had come to Tata Steel, which is Tisco, the old Tisco, to modernize that. Said, okay, if you do not want to do, chartered accountants, you become a mechanical engineer. So he compromised there. But he was stubborn that he should go and study in UK. So therefore, Mr. Ratan Tata used his Brahmastra, his nuclear missile. What was that? His grandmother told Ratan Tata's father, Neville Tata, don't insist on sending him to UK if his heart really says that he needs to US. He needs to go to US. So that is how he leaves for US and goes and studies at a school in Bronx in New York called Riverdale, which also is famous for the fact that John F. Kennedy also studied in that school. So that is how he takes a first step towards achieving his goal. But one aspect of Mr. Ratan's personality I would like to tell you is, you push him hard, he will push back harder. He's very humble, he's very polite, and he will not offend you, but he will stand his ground. And he has said many times, if somebody tells me that it can't be done, I will have to do it. So that's also one part of his personality. Please understand, if a man who had to record so many things in this country and the world and become an Indian giant and a world icon, there has to be some special character in him. And the more you unravel, the more you get to know what you do not know about him. He will combine, as I always say, science students, opposite poles characters. That is, characters of opposite poles. And they will come together in one personality. Let me give you an example. He's very empathetic, considerate, lots of sympathy. When it comes to business, he will brook no nonsense, tolerate no second level of success. No. He has always said during his meetings, you need to be number one or number 2 or 3 and work towards becoming number 1 or get out of the business. And he says, you need to have fire in your bellies. Never do the expected. And achieving great is not good enough. Never rest on your glory. And never ever give up. His life is always of sustained effort to achieve what, a lot of us would believe that cannot be achieved. So these are a few snippets of his life story I thought I'll share with you. So your next
yes,
question, please.
but before that, he did take electives in architecture. Then he goes and does graduation in architecture.
Yes,
and he uses architecture to improvise his businesses all the time with the philosophy of architecture.
See, what happened is after 2 years of mechanical, learning the US way of life, where choice is the most important freedom that you have, he decided to throw in the gauntlet. Okay, he decided to tell his father, Dad, no, I'm going back to architecture. And he went to architecture. And he passed out his college with flying colors. One of the toppers. And some of his, he has this handwriting which will make us feel very small. It's just like calligraphy. It is better than a computer printout of, that italics. You can't imagine how beautifully he writes. And moved into architecture. And then he says, Thomas, architecture really, really helped me through business. You know why? Architecture means draw a design, improve upon it, throw it out, redo the design, keep redoing till you become perfect. And he gives an example, whether it's Jaguar or Tata Motors or any of the businesses that he was engaged to.
And the best part is when, in India, royalties are royalties, and Tatas were royalties. But in US, one thing is that, they'll make you grounded and you will have to live like a commoner. So that there are these instances you bring out. I remember that, somebody asks him to come do grocery. He said, I don't do grocery. That's the statement comes. And he is actually using a common washroom there. And at some stage, you are also talking about facing racial discrimination at Cornell, right?
Yes. Yeah, let me put it like this to you. With 40 help at home, I don't think even you need to raise your hand to comb your hair. Probably somebody combed his hair for him, I don't know. That's only zest, okay? But that's only a hyperbolic statement you're trying to make. But in the US, the US grounded him in many ways. So when he shifted from the hostel to a house where 3-4 of them shared, his roommate said, come, let's go buy groceries. He says, I don't do groceries. Then he says, then you go hungry. So then finally he went. Both of them had gone. And I'll tell you something very interesting. Those days, you could only send $180 a month to the US because of the restrictions of RBI. And Mr. Tata loved flying. That was his passion. And he would do anything for it. You'll be surprised to know he used to wash planes, push planes around to make that extra money to buy flying hours. What does it reveal? It reveals his determination to achieve what he sets out. Please understand, determination is the first key to success. Like you say, hang in there, persevere, and then you will achieve success. And at one point of time, he even sold his cufflinks to get some extra money to do the flying. So that is also a part of his determination. And, key to his success, a very, very important part. So in the US, first time when he had gone, there's this thing called fraternity. In Cornell, fraternity means people of a similar character, people who take similar subjects, go to a separate hostel and they're called fraternity, which you don't have over here. So he belonged to a fraternity over there. And, Mr. Tata used to almost look like a Greek god. Despite that, the American society was so racial that they initially said that they will not make him a part of the fraternity. So, but finally, with the intervention of some of his friends, he was able to overcome that initial racial discrimination.
you spoke about him taking to flying and being so passionate about flying. He was also, taking a lot of risks in his flying very, very, very early on when probably he was not even trained fully to do things. He was doing all of that in air. So could you just take us briefly through what does it say about his risk-taking ability?
Can I have the next slide, please? This is one of the photographs which I got. This photograph is about 1957, 58. I traveled in the United States and met all his classmates who were alive. Traveled from city to city, town to town, village to village, looking for photographs, clue to Mr. Tata's character. This was given by one of his friends in Nebraska. And this is where Mr. Tata buys his flying lessons, and that is the tutor. And he was one of the earliest to get the flying license because he was so adept at it. And there is a funny side to Mr. Tata, okay? He is a prankster. He used to ask his friends to come, like you say, if you have a motorcycle, "Arey, chalo, let's go for a ride," like a Sunday ride or a Monday ride or evening drive, or if you have a car. So he used to, this is what is called a tri-pacer, okay? This has got engine in the front. So please have a look at it. Engine in the front, and it takes about 3 people plus the pilot. So Mr. Tata used to take his unsuspecting friends, take it to the highest, take the aircraft to the highest level, and suddenly switch off the engine. So, can you imagine what would happen? People are not used to these stunts, will say, "Oh my God, gone." And they used to pray immediately. Even guys or girls who never ever prayed in their life, Lord, called Krishna, Jesus, or anybody, will only be talking about, thinking about mantras and chanting. And just as almost he came to the level, which is the last, the height from the ground where you can switch on the engine, he is to switch on the engine and the takeoff. So that's the kind of man he was. He used to take risk. And believe me, risk-taking is a part of his character. And he said, unless you take risk, you cannot gain anything. If you want to climb Mount Everest, you cannot sit in a heated or air-conditioned room like this and say, "Okay, let me climb." That's just not happen. There is no risk, there is no gain. That's a part of his character which you see right from his childhood till his last. Because he says, if somebody, like I told you earlier, if somebody says, "It can't be done," he says, "Of course it can be done." Nano car, for instance, about which I think she's going to ask me later. So that is his risk-taking capacity.
Dr. Matthew, if you step back a bit, when I was doing my research for The Reluctant Billionaire, I got to know a lot of stories that were not didn't need to be part of my book. One was related to one of the, and we will not name names here, but another top industrialist. And very interestingly, he was on his way to ascension, but had not made it big. And he was driving a car. And a Jain gentleman who was to get into business with him was sitting next to him. And this guy runs over a cat. And the cat dies. The Jain businessman shakes there sitting and saying, "What did you do?" And this person who was going to become one of India's top industrialists says that I'm on fast lane. I can't slow down for such small things. I read a similar instance in your book where Ratan with his friend is driving a very pricey sports car, and somewhere a dog comes, and to save the dog, they completely get into a very bad accident, almost risking their own lives. Can you do you think it's a seed of how important means and process were for Tatas, as important as the end, or sometimes even more important than achieving the end?
So, Shama, this is a very complex question. Okay. Now, I need to look at this from 2 or 3 different angles. First, you need to understand when I told you a lot of sympathy in that man. All right. I see some of my friends from Africa over here. Okay. Let me give you an example. Mr. Tata was very close to Mbeki, the president of South Africa. He was close to him even when he was the vice president. So Mr. Tata was also in the council of Mbeki's Council for Development of Africa. He writes to Mbeki and says, I want to be a part of the growth of the community of Africa. I want to give rather than take from the people and engage in community development. I'll give you another example, then I'll come to this point. I went to Kenya. Now you'll ask, what has Mr. Tata got to do with Kenya? Okay. I went to Kenya to interview the Maasai chief. Now you'll say, what the hell has got Maasai chief got to do with Mr. Tata? You know, Tata has got a company called Tata Magadi in Kenya. Now, that is situated in and around the geographical location where you have a concentration of Maasai. So I interviewed the Maasai chief and he told me something very interesting. He says, not only has Tata's tried to localize the higher management in the company. Earlier, it was by a British company called Brunamont. He says something very interesting. What Tatas have been trying to do is get the Maasai children after school, employ them in Tata Magadi chemical plant so that you upgrade the skill to enable them to get job across Africa. Interesting. Second, early morning, I had gone with the previous chief. And he showed me, do you see the thousands and thousands of herd of cows being driven towards the chemical plant? I said, doesn't make sense to me. He says, let me tell you something. Tata Magadi has got huge areas earmarked where they have water being supplied for the cattle of Maasai. For a Maasai, a cattle herd is as important as a family member. So every morning you will see thousands of cattle being herded towards the chemical plant for water. So that is community development. And it is the sympathy, empathy, and compassion. And R&T would have risked his life to save a dog. And you know his passion for dogs. I'll take you to the last set of photographs where I will show you the photographs of R&T, which he himself has forgotten, about his love for dogs. His love for dogs is legendary. I'll give you an example, R&T, to show you the level of affection. R&T had a girlfriend in the US called Carolyn Emmons. About her, I'll go speak. Fast forward, her husband finally, they could not get married, and she came to India after her husband died, after many decades, to meet Mr. Tata. And Mr. Tata always had two dogs, Tito and Tango. Tango had a problem, and the vet in Mumbai said, you'll have to amputate. Mr. Tata said, no, I will not. Flew him all the way to Minnesota. So his first girlfriend comes, and Mr. Tata is not here. She says, I was very upset. He had taken the dog to the US. So that's the kind of compassion, empathy this man has. And please understand, I don't practice Christianity, but in Christianity they say, a man who is good in small is good in big. Please understand that. That is the empathy he has. And when it comes to 2611, about which I'm sure you're going to ask me, I will tell you the extent to which Mr. Tata went to help and provide succor to the people who were affected.
Dr. Matthew, on behalf of the young audience here, can I ask you that I think love is very important in life. It doesn't matter how big a man or whatever he has achieved. Why biographies, and especially business biographies, are so, cursory about love life? And I've seen you've spent a few pages there on discussing his love life, but don't you think love shapes us? So in that case, couldn't you have given it a little more attention in the book?
Good question. You know, see, half the kids were sleeping now, eyes have popped up. They're talking about love.
Yes.
Okay, sure. Okay. I won't disappoint you, let me tell you this. Okay. Now, where do I start? How do I start this? Mr. Tata, I don't think you would have ever seen him, Mr. Tata had the kind of looks which should make the ladies drool and the men embarrassed. Can I have a photo, please? The next one. Wherever I go, if I show this photograph, I'll say, if guys take this photograph home, they're going to have trouble at home. It's going to embarrass every man looking at him. It looks like, something like a picture-perfect man, like a dream boy he was. And, when he met, honestly, this book itself is about 700 pages without footnotes, okay? And there are about 3,900 footnotes. So if I had to put the footnotes into this, it would have gone to 1,000 pages. And because of that, I've given it in the QR code. I suppose you know what a QR code is, right? It's in the QR code. My initial book, that is the two-volume book, are a solid chapter, 38,000 words on what I called Ratan's American girlfriend. Okay? It had A to Z in it. But then I had to compromise on this story because there were a lot to it, and there were some people who came and said, oh no, this chapter, reads like Mills and Boons. So somebody is very close to Mr. Tata. So I told her, I said, ma'am, for God's sake, in every person's life there are Mills and Boons and stories which we may not like to say, but which would reveal the character of people. And I'll tell you something. Okay, can I see the next slide? This photograph was, look at this, was given by his girlfriend to me when I interviewed her for 7 to 8 hours. So I'm going to show you how good looking he was. And even today when I ask people in Taj, the ladies say even if they are on leave, they used to come and stand at the counter to see him pass by. Can you show the next photograph? Enlarge it please for me. Enlarge it please for me if you can. Expand it. Go down. Go down. Go down. Come on. Yeah. This is the Don Corleone look which he gives in Cornell. And he had not seen this photograph. This I got from a friend. And he was both unhappy and excited to see. Unhappy because he said, Thomas, this is not the kind of person I am. I said, sir, this is one part of your dimension. I said, which you can't see, but others can see. Let's show you another photograph. I'm showing you photographs, trying to take you through his life. This is at Cornell. Just to, but don't have aspirations of, you guys going up and looking for guys like him. Impossible. 1 in a million years, we'll get a guy like him. Go to the next, please. And there's a nice photograph of Mr. Tata as a barman. Can you imagine Mr. Tata as a barman? I flew from Boston to Los Angeles just to get this one photograph. And Mr. Tata said, where did you get this from? I said, I'm not going to tell you. I said, this is freedom of my choice, and I'm going to put this in the book. He said, don't do it. I said, no, I'm going to do this. See how nice it is. A barman. Tata is a barman. Can you imagine? He's got the hat making him look so great. Okay, next one. This is Mr. Tata and his girlfriend. Okay? Not going further. And in 1962, there's so much to speak about him. There's so much to speak about him. And this girl he really wanted to get married to. And they used to spend evenings and days listening to their favorite singer from France called Edith Piaf. Okay? And she talks about love, loss, and sorrow. And this song is, I'm going to try to take you back to 62 to imagine the kind of love life he had and how happy he was. Can I go to the next one? Can you please play that for me? Go to the next one. Sound. Hey, come on, I told you sound earlier.
Non, je ne regrette rien.
This is a favorite song?
Pas trop lent, hein? Pas trop lent.
Song means I have no regrets.
Non, rien de rien. Non, je ne regrette rien. Ni le bien qu'on m'a fait, ni le mal. Tout ça m'est bien
Goes on for about 3 4 minutes. It
égal.
goes to, I wanted to take you back for a moment so that you can imagine
De
the kind
Michel Beaucaire.
he had. But please understand, he was not a man of luxury. I'm going to show you a sudden contrast. Go to the next photo. You know what this is?
That perhaps leads to disruptive technology.
What are you doing? Go back, yeah? Don't do that.
De Michel.
Hey, the next photo. Tech always has a problem. No, this one. Stop here, please. You know what this is? Can you imagine Mr. Tata being sent to Jamshedpur for training? You know Jamshedpur, for training. And where does he stay? He doesn't stay in a palace. Doesn't stay in a hotel. He stays in a dealer's hostel. This is the room where he used to say, I'd gone and clicked this photograph. And if you have noticed, no cupboard. It doesn't have a toilet. He has to stand in queue like any other ordinary man. And he went to the director and said, can I bring my car in Jamshedpur? So the director said, no. Trainees have to use cycles or max go get a scooter for yourself. And Mr. Tata says, they wanted to break me, and I refused to break. So he walked every day for 6 months from the hostel to Telco, that is Tata Motors. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the luxury you're talking about? A man so defined, he says, if you're not going to allow me to have what I want, I'm going to walk it. So this is one part of it. There's so much to tell you about. I interviewed about 138 people across the world, so many stories, so many snippets, great achievements. I think this man, it is not because I love him, okay, which I certainly do. Like people accuse me of saying that you have been very kind to him. I said, give me a reason why I should be unkind to him. Don't make bold statements. You tell me why I should be. So, he has no equals because all what he does is aggressiveness. Business is for philanthropy and society. I'll come to the most serious part of it.
Yeah,
Ma'am,
Dr. Matthew,
please.
and we'll probably have to hasten a bit.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So
I'm looking at the time when it
Yes,
started.
yes,
60 minutes.
yes. So I think when we write business biographies, we focus so much on strategies and qualities of the person, this, that. But I think the strategies also have an emotional trigger, and emotions play such a big role in whether it's business or otherwise. I think even while Tata was scripting one of the most important things which would shape the Tata Group, he was in Sloan Kettering while his mother was losing her life to cancer. So what would you say was the role of emotion in business for Tata?
See, that again is a tricky question. The emotional component is only this. The need to serve the society was his emotional envelope on which the entire Tata empire and the philosophy of the group rested. How to serve the society better. Since she said she's already given me a warning, I need to go fast. Okay, let me talk about the trusteeship concept. I suppose you know the trusteeship. Tatas believed that the wealth would have to be held by the group for the society as a trust, so that they can return it back to the society. That is the emotive part in Mr. Tata's philosophy.
There is a recurring theme in the book when he's already, he's going to become the leader, and after that, where his rivalry with other established corporate leaders like Rusi Modi and Darbari Seth. There are two aspects to it. One is, there is a recurring theme on his similarities with JRD, where you kind of keep bringing this again and again, how similar he was to JRD in very many facets, and demolish the theory that he was chosen because he was a Tata. At least that is not the sole and single reason for him being chosen. And this rivalry. Could you take us through?
Yeah,
these two
quickly.
aspects?
There are two loaded questions. First, let me take you through. I will not use the word rivalry.
Okay.
As
whatever
a
you
business
choose.
journalist, they need to sell. So they use the word rivalry. I would not use that. In 1991, R&T was appointed as Chairman Tata Sons. What did he face? He faced satraps, chieftains, great business leaders in Rusi Modi, Darbari Seth, Ajit Kerkar. And believe me, these leaders were veterans, giants in their own field. Rusi Modi looked after Tata Steel, which was Tisco, Darbari Seth, Tata Chemicals, and Ajit Kerkar single-handedly built up what's called the Taj hotels. Now, R&T wanted change, but please understand, this is what I try to explain. R&T had no enmity towards any one of them. I'll just, I'll have to explain, but I don't have the time. So I'm just going to give you one or two instances. R&T wanted change because in 1991, guys who have done economics will understand, India was moving through an economic revolution. They were buffeting changes of economic revolution in this country. So R&T had to change. The old ways had to give to the new. And he found these three stalwarts who were senior but resisting. Rusi Modi is great leader, very pompous man. He used to say, I have 16 egg omelette every morning. And he says, I'm so democratic because I give everybody the right to agree with me. So you are dealing with such people. So what do? So it was not his rivalry. He wanted change. And Rusi Modi was 73, 74, 75. So you don't have people who will harbinger change. So therefore, it was not that. I would not agree with that concept. And the second question, what is the second?
The recurring on similarity
between R&T and
JRD.
That I've given a full chapter called The Appointment. Simple. Let me put it like in small sentences completed. R&T joined the group not expecting to be the chairman, number one. Number two, you need to understand R&T is a Tata, but not related to JRD in any way. In any way. Number three, Mr. Tata was not even related at that time, as people knew, to even Jamshedji. It's only during the course of the research of my book, I went to Navsari and got the details of the ancestry of Tata for the first time, and got the common ancestor called Bika Tata, who was one son, his successors, at one side you have Jamshedji Tata, one Neville Tata. Until then, there was nothing. So why did JRD choose Mr. Tata? Until the last, he did not choose him. And there are instances where Mr. JRD was supporting Rusi Modi, even to be the chairman of Tata Motors. Now, the reason are about fourfold, the major reasons. One, the scientific temper of Mr. Tata. Number two, is strategic vision, which was exemplified by the 1983 strategic plan which he had made, and compassion and entrepreneurship. And most importantly, what he says is that only among the contenders, Mr. Ratan Tata had, quote unquote, my kind of integrity. Giving you one example to prove it. When Mr. Tata was confronted with the situation of paying 4 crores to get 1,000 crores of mines, he said, no. I need to show an example to the world that crony capitalism cannot be encouraged. And gave up 1,000 crores because he refused to pay 4 crores.
Dr. Matthew, when I go through your book, I think 2 lasting legacies of Ratan Tata in the Tata Group would be the modernization and technology that he brought to many of the businesses. But second and most important probably is to instill the group character and instill a group ethos, which were, in your book is being shown as run as almost as a loose congregation of fiefdoms, if I can use that word. What do you think is his lasting legacy?
Again, this will call for a 2-hour session, but I'll just give you 10 points. When now the serious side of business, economic students would like to take note of this. When he took over, the Tatas were like a loose confederation. Means there was no affinity towards the center, number one. Number two, Tata Sons is a promoter company. Tata Sons holding of the major companies was so low that it would have been vulnerable to hostile takeover. For instance, in 1992, Tata Sons had 10.3% less shares in Tata Steel, which is Tisco, than Birlas had in Tisco. Can you imagine? That Tatas were controlling, and then R&D says that did not give us even the right. So R&D embarked on an 11-pillar policy, out of which an award was instituted called JRDQV Award, based on an American Malcolm Baldrige model, only in order to establish that good work excellence will be recognized and you will be awarded. Okay. Now, what is his lasting legacy? His lasting legacy is that a lot of people say, if it were not for the leadership of Mr. Ratan Tata, Tata Sons, Tata Group would not have been what it is today. Simple 2-3 statistics and stop. When R&D took over, I'm sure you know what GDP is. Turnover, the entire turnover of Tatas was equal to 1.8% of India's GDP. In 2012, after India saw really fast growth and broke out of the Hindu rate of growth, Tata's turnover had become 5.47% of India's GDP. Okay. 3. When he took over, the turnover of the company was $5.4 billion. It increased to $100 billion, which is 1,742% growth. While the comparable companies in the world called GEC, led by Jack Welch, for 18 years from 1981 to 2000, his group grew by about 381%. And he was termed as the business leader of the century by Fortune. And Mr. Ratan Tata beat him by 1,361%. That's why I keep telling. He was so reluctant to speak about his own achievements. If Jack Welch declared as the businessman of the century, I truly believe that Mr. Ratan Tata should be declared as the businessman of the millennium. Now, what is his lasting contribution? He achieved this by adopting ethical, normative means to achieve his goal. In other words, in a sea of crony capitalism, he stood as a beacon of what is right and established that you don't have to be doing things wrong in order to be number one. And this is extraordinarily important because growth of democracies, growth of economies can only be sustained on a platform of ethical growth and not chronic capitalism or any form of oligarchy. So this is his lasting message.
And bringing ourselves to a little lighter topic on nano and, how I think he saw nano as probably the Beatles from his table, the way he imagined it. But how it came to be, can you tell us how he was giving an interview in Financial Times and he just kind of off the cuff threw the 1 lakh figure, and how everybody around rallied that figure and tried to make it happen, though it was impossible, seemed impossible at the moment.
Yeah, no, before that, he used to, Mr. Tata used to have what's called the AGM, Annual General Management Meet, where he drove hard his dreams. I've taken a clip out of it just to show you, you will not ever get the opportunity to see him speak or hear him speak. Can I have the video, please?
That perhaps leads to disruptive technologies that basically comes from allowing us to, or permitting the environment that we live in, allowing our people to dream.
Okay, stop it here, otherwise it goes on. No, What
giving
is he
those
talking about?
people.
What is he talking? He's talking about disruptive technology and chase your dreams. Never give up. Okay? This is the address he used to give every year to the CEOs of the large companies. Now, coming to Nano. Now, you heard about Henry Kissinger, the famous American Secretary of State. You know what he told me when I interviewed him? He said, for Mr. Tata, a business proposal emanates from a social need. That is, if the society requires it, Tatas come forward. So that to fill that social need. So for R&T, a business was a way to fulfill what the people wanted. Now, what is Nano? My chapter is called Anything But Nano. That is, Nano is not Nano, is what I was said. I said in my chapter. I argued differently. If Mr. Tata wanted to start a car, why will he start Nano? You could have gone for Lamborghini, Maserati, Mercedes, Audi, or any of those cars. Why did he choose Nano? He wanted to do it because he wanted to give the middle class and the lower middle class a safe means of travel. That is he wanted to do. So therefore, to fulfill a social goal. And did it succeed? As an idea, it succeeded. Did Tata succeed? No, because it was a marketing failure. I'll just take it forward and stop it here. What Nano did was Nano engendered or started what is called a revolution, a nano revolution. There is a gentleman called Ghar Auditorium, who is the director of an art design college in Pasadena. It is in California, the most advanced in the world. He turns on and says it was a nano effect. See, the Wright brothers discovered or invented the aircraft. They enjoyed an idea and a revolution. So you don't have to be business-wise successful in order to have started a revolution. Second, in the Smithsonian Institute, in the design hall, they had a full-size advertisement of nano car, and they said it was a marvel of a design. And what did it do? It made cars cheaper throughout the world. In fact, Carlson Ghosn, the chief of Nissan Renault, started producing the concept car through frugal engineering, the car called Logan. So what did R&T do? He fulfilled his goal of providing cheap cars to people to make this travel safe by going through so many difficulties. And the same Financial Times said, through this revolution, nano revolution, Mr. Ratan Tata has earned his name as a modern Ford. I suppose I've clarified this part. Can we? Now, time is, others will stop me up with.
Okay, I think the book climax is when the successor has been chosen, when we would think it's sunset years, but actually the book climax is there, talking about the details of Tata versus Mistry, Cyrus Mistry battle, and somewhere do you see this also as a kind of difference between the two, say a group, saving of group's character versus financial prudence, or how do you see this battle? And somewhere you have implied that this genesis of this is way back, and can you just take us through that bit?
See, this battle, no. Rivalry, no. Difference of ways, yes. Difference of opinion, yes. R&T is not the kind of guy who will, pick up a stone and throw or do something which we normally people would do. This is the part which is not understood, actually. What was the difference of opinion between him and Cyrus Mistry? In fact, Cyrus Mistry is also a great guy, well educated. But actually, it's a mistake which Mr. Tata committed, and I've said so in my book, because you cannot pluck a man out of somewhere and make him chairman of salt to software to steel. Not possible. It's like making me chairman of animal husbandry. I don't know what animals you'll be talking about. So it is like that. On the other hand, I interviewed a lot of people, and including the top brass, and they said, maybe given 5 years or 10 years training in some of the companies would have made him a great leader. Please understand, Mr. Tata from 1962 to 1991, he worked from shoveling coal into the furnaces of Tata Steel to occupying the post of executive assistant to several other companies' directorship like like Nelco and Empress Mills. So he learned along the way. It's like saying, without studying from class, you may be extraordinary, but without studying from class 1 to 12, you're asked to go do your PhD. Not possible. It's sure to fail. So what happened? But as Tata said, see, Mystery was surrounded by a lot of people who did not have the experience. Just give you one small example, which I'm going to give you. Some of the advisors he had around him, Mr. Mystery, were younger than, in terms of age, number of years, less than the experience of Tata veterans under Mr. Tata. In other words, you have Krishna Kumar who has spent 45, 50 years in Tata Group, while Mystery's advisors were about 34 years of age. So can you at 34 years talk to a veteran who has seen the corporate life for 44 years? The answer is no. Now, two reasons what happened. One was, it is not Mr. Shapoorji Pallonji Group's failure, but they were one of the largest contractors of Tata companies. Even when Mr. Cyrus Mystery was a director, Shapoorji Pallonji got 2,000, 3,000 crores of contract per year of Tata companies. Now, once you become a chairman, can you allow your companies to take benefit of your chairmanship? The answer is no. In government, you would be suspended and sent home. Okay? Because you cannot give it to your same company. You can't do that. And Mr. Tata, while he was being appointed, said very clearly, I'm making this conditional that he will have to establish a legally tenable architecture, means he'll have to build a Chinese wall between him and Shapoorji Pallonji Group, which did not happen. So you have a chairman whose business companies taking advantage of your group companies. While Mr. Tata in 1998 had introduced what's called the Tata Code of Conduct. It's like the Civil Service Code of Conduct, that you cannot do this, you cannot do this, all your means have to be ethical. Okay? So first he's confronted with this, a man who does not establish a separation. Two, the performance of the Tata companies come down. I've established it in numbers in my book. So Mr. Tata is caught by a dilemma. The man continues on the top, also being a part of Shapoorji Pallonji Group. And the Shapoorji Pallonji company gets a lot of contracts with other companies, number one. Number two, the performance comes down. Now, what happens when the performance comes down? Most important. There is no money. Let me just tell you the structure. Tata Trust owns 66% of Tata Sons. Tata Sons holds all these companies, Tata Motors, Tata Steel, all these. These companies make profit. Dividends are paid to Tata Sons. And the dividends go to Tata Trust, which spends all the money for philanthropy. Please understand this. So when Mr. Tata says, the performance is going down, I have no money for philanthropy, what do I do? He says, Thomas, do I sit back? Don't have a fiduciary. That means don't have a responsibility towards the shareholders. Don't have a responsibility towards society. So therefore, he says, I took the hardest decision of my life to remove a man who I had appointed. And believe me, it hurt Mr. Tata more than it hurt Mr. Cyrus Mystery. And he died with that regret. I don't know if you're going to ask me this question. He died with that regret. So it is not rivalry. It is a question of getting in first to embrace the normative values of the group, ensure that it's sustained, that it's not disrupted. Number two, ensure that enough money flows into the philanthropy. Assam is a beneficiary of Tata's largest through philanthropy. The number of cancer hospitals, which the Tatas have, it comes through Tata Trust. So if you don't have profits which go into Tata Trust, what do you do? So therefore, there was a compulsion. I keep telling people this is the reason. While, people don't read, and, and Arendt himself did not reveal the inner reasons. And at one point of time, he told me that I supported Mr. Cyrus Mistry so much, I wanted him to even be considered as Chairman Tata Trust. This is an unfortunate part of the Tata history, and he died as a very sad man. A very, very sad. His health took a beating because he says, I removed him, and that was not the Tata way of doing things. And, he used to be in tears when he used to speak to me. He says, I don't know what legacy I'm leaving, but I had to step in for society and for guarding the ethical values of the group.
This is quite a revelation, Dr. Matthew, that, that he
Thank
did
you.
regret this decision, and how painful it would have been for him because it was so uncharacteristic.
Completely.
And one thing I've seen from my experience also, these people who have made it so big and succeed at this scale, it's not that they don't make mistakes, but they don't shy away from correcting it, even at the cost of reputational damage. Do you think it's true for Tata?
That's
Especially
exactly
in the Mistry case?
what happened in the Cyrus Mistry.
That's exactly what I'm asking.
It hurt him more. And in fact, it divided the Parsi group. And people really don't go into the nitty-gritties, the minutiae as to why this happened.
But philanthropy is a serious business for Tatas.
It is a real business for the Tatas.
And they have a conglomerate of philanthropies, from education to environment, everything. So one question we get asked as financial journalists is that why is Ratan Tata not on wealth list top 10, And I think somewhere that structure that you explained about Tata Trust is the fact that there is an institutional structure which kind of takes that money and profits and plows it back to philanthropy is very unique.
So please understand, Mr. Tata did not take pride in making money. He took pride in giving money. He did not want money for himself. He wanted money for the group. So that it goes back to the trust. And he says, my forefathers committed their entire wealth for philanthropy. And I will only contribute to that. For him, what did he do with money? It's quite interesting. I wish I could have shown you some, some photographs. We used to, at times we used to sit from morning 9 o'clock till about 6 o'clock, breaking all his schedules. And he said, Thomas, let's go for lunch. Or let's order lunch. You know what lunch would be? Opposite the place where he's staying in Halakai is a dirty old pizza shop. Pizza, French fries, and Coke. That's Mr. Tata's lunch. I've got a lot of photographs to show you that. You won't believe it. You won't believe. And that's the kind of lifestyle he led. For him, it did not matter. It just did not matter. Money was not something he wanted to accumulate in his life. He wanted to ensure that there were enough resources for the group so that the trust has the funds in order to fulfill their social obligation.
Dr. Matthew, I have to ask you this question, and then we can take a few questions from the audience. Did Ratan Tata get a chance to read your book? And if yes, what kind of emotions did it evoke in him?
See, let me tell you, this is an authorized book. This is not an approved book. Okay? Please understand that. You must have heard about Elon Musk's book and Steve Jobs' book written by Walter Isaacson. All of them cooperated. All of them, he gave me, for the first time, he gave somebody unfettered access to Tata Group archives. I could search anything. I interviewed him for hundreds of hours. But I could not give him the manuscript for his approval because people say there are so many expressions of my love for him, and they say it comes through. That is because he deserves it. And please understand, I need to tell you this. I'm proud of one thing I did, okay? And greatly privileged to have had the occasion to meet him so many times, sit with him, walk into his house. People spend a lifetime wanting to get a photograph with him. I could walk anytime, whatever, pick up the phone, speak to him, and yet, you won't believe. Let me ask the audience. How much do you think I got paid to do this book? Make a guess. Somebody, come on, don't waste time. We are running short of time. Can somebody say? Hey, Pyare, how much do you think I must have got paid? Yeah, can I have the mic? Just get the mic in, please.
Can somebody please,
Quickly,
can a volunteer
quickly.
please give the mic?
He's my
to
batchmate.
Mr. Pyarelal? Oh, great.
He is my smarter batchmate from Assam Kada. You know, we said smarter Keralites outside Kerala Kada. The bad guys stay back in Kerala. Okay, Pyare.
Thomas, you worked for how many years for this?
4.5 years.
4.5 years. And you are getting government pension. So, minus that, at least 2 lakhs per month. Only 2 lakhs per month for 4 years. How much will it be?
Okay.
The maths.
Okay, somebody else. Yeah, he says only 2 lakhs per month. Even Sarkar bhi deta 2 lakhs here. Come on. Yeah.
For 4 years.
The guy I put him, the guy.
No,
some of the guys.
you got 500 crore of rupees.
Okay, go ahead. What is half a crore? You know, some of the guys, they get in Tata Trust CEO,
Thomas,
earns about 2.4 crores a year.
Thomas, before you finish, you tell about, that how he had to forego that Prince Charles award.
Yeah, I'm coming to that. Okay, somebody else, tell me how much I got to pay. Make it fast. Somebody, stand up and say. Okay.
It's just a guess, just a guess.
Guess, somebody, come on. Sir, but what about you? You come with great reputation. Just see how much. Make a guess, a wild guess.
Your question itself is $1 million question.
So did I get $1 million? Okay. Now let me tell you something very interesting. I spent from my pocket 75 lakhs for the research of this book and for travel. I did not stay in any of the Taj hotels even for one day. I'll give you the reason why I did this. People thought I was absolutely foolish, but I said I was not doing it for money. Money will come, money will go, but the opportunity is unique. So what do? You do things so that the work is objective. And 20 years from now or 30 years from now, I do not want somebody to say, this book is a paid job, it's trash. Correct? So I had 4.5 years of my life I'm not going to do for anything which is considered trash. I said no. So I paid from my... So I was very happy to tell Mr. Tata, I said, sir, I view differently than you view yourself. So this book, yes, but I've discussed so much with him. And I praised him. And I said it openly, he's the shine of industrial leaders in the world because he's unique, he's a giant. He's a titan who has no followers. He has no equals in the world. There's nobody who can follow his footsteps, according to me, at least maybe I don't know how many years. Henry Kissinger says it, the world's top leaders say it. This man has been absolutely unique, and we have been fortunate to have a man like him. Very stubbornly, adhering to the values of the group. And fascinating, man. Fascinating. If we had got the opportunity, he's an adorable human being with great qualities. And you should have seen his house in Mumbai. Nothing. His dining table doubles up as office space. Can you imagine, Mr. Tata's? So that's what it is. Now,
yeah, Dr. Matthew, we'll take just
okay.
one, two questions.
Okay, last.
Sure.
Let me show you the things he loved most after his grandmother. Come on, quickly. You know who? Come on, enlarge it. This is his favorite dog called Tito. See, you did not see, for him, it meant everything. Dogs were his companion for his loneliest moments in life. When there were a difference of opinion with JRD2, his favorite companion was this. Okay, go to the next one. I'll show you some photographs. Enlarge it. You will never see Mr. Ratan Tata in shorts. Can you imagine? He used to love his dog so much. Next one, please. See his humility. Next one, quickly. Next one. See, he wouldn't mind sitting on the ground, sitting on the floor. Can you imagine? Please understand, Tata's turnover is almost, let's say, 120th in GDP of, 40 or 45th in countries. If Tata was a country, you would be about 40, 45 or 50, depending on the year. That's the GDP, that's kind of turnover. 130, $40 billion is what you're talking about. See his humility. Niche baith gaya. And see his watch. It is no Rolex. It's not Omega. It's an ordinary watch, which costs 5,000 rupees, Swiss watch. I see Pyare hiding his watch. Are you? No. Okay, go on to the next one, the last one. The majestic Tito. Love him so much. Okay, now I'll stop with this and take questions.
Yes. Do we have volunteers?
Okay, I'll come to that. Let question.
Please. Can we get a mic to sir?
Just give him a mic quickly.
Thank you so much for giving us an insight into Ratan Tata. We knew about him, but today we learned quite a lot. Thank you so much. My question is, do you feel that he deserved Bharat Ratna during his life?
Can I ask you a question? You know, one American president said, he will answer questions with questions. You tell me, does he deserve Bharat Ratna? Come on. Guys, raise your hands. So that's it. There is a question. There's no question for him, you know. Because he is a beacon of ethical business in a nation of crony capitalism. And that's huge. And he proved that you can do things the right way and succeed. Any other question?
Can we have hands? Can we see hands?
Why is it youngsters have no Josh in them? What is this?
We have no questions at all?
Satya?
Yes.
You need to ask.
Can we take the mic to sir?
We've all wish it, then do you think there will be another Tata?
I don't know. I honestly don't think so. I'll tell you why. He was shaped by, if you ask me in zest, I'll say by celestial circumstances. His grandmother symbolizes ethics, normative values. And he also got the opportunity of a 1991 economic revolution, where his scientific mind and his larger vision could play the tune of development. That doesn't happen normally. He had a combination of historical factors and personal circumstances that combined, that melded into a great strategic initiative. 1983 strategic initiative, or the strategic plan, combined with the 1990 2.0 strategic plan. I'm not going into the details. Yes, Satya.
Yeah.
Mr. Satya is an eminent author himself and a civil servant. So you can expect a googly from him.
No googlies. Very straightforward, curious question.
Please.
My curiosity. In our lifetime, we have seen two iconic figures of the Tata line, JRD and Ratan Tata. And from the first news which came out after the demise of Ratan Tata is everything is not well in the Tata empire, and that seems to be, with change of guard, things are changing. So do we see the continuation of what you have seen, or things are changing very clearly?
See, I don't see any negative change at all. Unlike, Mr. Tata was the chairman of both Tata Trust and Tata Sons. You have Tata Trust led by Noel Tata, veteran, an intellectual, a man who carries Tata legacy. And then you have Chairman Tata Sons, N. Chandrasekharan, extraordinarily bright, led TCS to heights never achieved before, a digital maestro. I think combination of the two would take the Tatas to higher heights on the foundation laid by Mr. Ratan Tata. That's what I believe.
Can I have a question?
Please, ma'am.
You spend so
Suppose
much.
you're not asking about his good looks.
No, you spend so much time with him. What one thing which has changed in your life, spending or influenced you? One learning through these hours, days, and years you spent with him.
See, the one thing is that learned from him is that how can a man of so much means belittle the rich, and only one goal in mind, that the society needs to be served. I'll give you one example. Mukundan is the chairman of Tata Chemicals, okay? You know what Tata Salt, right? R&T sir called Mukundan and said, add salt, add an iodine to salt. So he said, we cannot increase the price because adding that, people won't be able to understand. It's not tangible. It cannot be seen. You know what Mr. Ratan Tata turned around and said? It does not matter. We need to serve the mothers and the young children. We need to fortify it for their sake. Giving you one more example, you know, there's this company called Sasol from Africa. They had engaged in liquefaction of coal. And Mr. Tata spent a lot of money trying to do this because India was subject to oil embargo or the fetters because of oil embargo and constricted supply. So that's the man he is. You know, you can't imagine how his heart is to go out to the people. His humility. Half the time I tell you, your humility is embarrassing. Your humility is embarrassing because it makes you so small. You know, when you go to his house at times, you see him having lunch with his cook's daughter sitting with him. And he served the cook's daughter. Now, can you ever imagine? Hamara ghar mein hota to you cannot come here. And especially Nair community from which Pierrella comes. You know, they have this casteism. You cannot come anywhere near this. That's what it is. Even in my home too. My mother, we are supposed to be originally from, the Bajaj class. So that's what it is. I think she said,
Yes,
the anchor man has come. Okay, yes. I conclude here. I'm so glad for this opportunity. And Mr. Rahul had done an enormous task of organizing this. Thank you very much. And I hope you take some lessons for life and transmit it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Matthew.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Bye.
for sitting through this. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, everyone seated at the auditorium today. As we come to the close of this enlightening session, we leave with a deeper appreciation of Ratan Tata's legacy, not just as a business leader, but as a visionary who redefined India's corporate landscape with integrity, innovation, and compassion. His journey is a testament to the power of resilience, ethical leadership, and a relentless pursuit of excellence. A heartfelt thank you to Dr. Soma Das and Dr. Thomas Matthew for their invaluable insights and engaging discussion. Their perspectives have not only shed light on Tata's remarkable contributions, but also given us much to reflect on, whether in business leadership or life itself. And finally, to our audience, thank you for your time, enthusiasm, and curiosity. May this conversation inspire us all to strive for excellence, just as the man of steel Ratan Tata has done throughout his incredible journey. I request all the audience to please be seated as we are continuing with the next session right away. We'll take a few moments to set up the stage. Thank you, and have a wonderful day ahead.
A kind attention to everybody. The audience, please kindly be seated. We'll be going to start a session very soon. We request our audience to be kindly be seated. We'll start our session very soon. A kind attention to everybody before the session starts. please keep your mobile phones on silent mode or on flight mode so that we can smoothly conduct our session. Thank you. Namaste, salam, and a very warm good morning to one and all present here today. It gives me an immense pleasure to welcome you all on the behalf of Dibrugarh University to the very third day of International Literature Festival 2025, which has clubbed all of us together here today, where words weave world. To start with, the title of today's session is Her Story, which would be chaired by Paramita Satpathy, Smriti Ravindra, and Shabnam Khan, and would be moderated by Naspeem Akhtar ma'am. Our rapporteurs of today's event would be Tanpreet Kaur and Bishwajit Deka from the Department of English. So now I'd like to call Ms. Paramita Satpathy to please come forward and take her seat in the dais. She is an Indian Revenue Service official and a bilingual writer of Oriya and English with 25 books of story collections, novels, novella collections, and poem collections to her credit. Her works have translated into several Indian and European languages. Prominent among her books are Intimate Pretense, A Boundless Moment, and Colors of Loneliness. Her important works in Hindi include दूर के पहाड़, चंदन के फूल, पाप और अन्य कहानियाँ, प्राप्ति, अभिप्रेत काल, अंधेरे में आंखें, तुम और शब्द, etc. Her stories and poems are incorporated in colleges and university course curriculums. She received Sahitya Academy Award in 2016 for her collections of novella Prapti, A Boundless Moment. Her recent novel on free struggle in Oriya Abhiprit Kal, A Time Desired, has won her Sarala Award. Her other awards also include Assam Sahitya Sabha Samman. Paramita works amongst the new strides that women fiction writing in the country seems to be taking. She is currently posted as the Chief Commissioner of Income Tax in New Delhi. We heartily welcome you, ma'am, to the event. Next, I would like to call Ms. Smriti Ravindra to please come forward and take her seat in the dais. She is a Nepali Indian writer and a Fulbright scholar and holds a MFA degree in creative writing from North Carolina State University. Her works of fiction and journalism has been published globally, including the US, India, and Nepal. The Woman Who Climbed Trees is her first novel. She currently resides in Mumbai, India. Ma'am, we heartily welcome you to the event. Next, we would like to call Ms. Shabnam Khan to please come forward and take her seat in the dais. She is a South African author and an artist with Indian heritage. Her first novel, Onion Tears, about 3 generations of Indians living in South Africa, was shortlisted for the Penguin Prize for African Writing. Her latest novel, The Jane's Wait 100 Years, was published in 2024 in South Africa, US, UK, and India. It has received stat reviews from Kirkus Reviews and Library Journal. selected as NPR's Best Book for 2024 in a New York Times Editor Choice. Her writings have appeared in the New York Times, Max Queenie's Quarterly Concern, the Sunday Times, Marie Claire, and HuffPost, among others. Ma'am, we heartily welcome you to the event. Next, I would like to call our moderator of today's session, Ms. Nasmeem Akhtar, ma'am, to please come forward and take her seat in the dais. Ms. Nasmeem Akhtar is Associate Professor of English in Dibrugarh University. She has designed and teaches the paper Women and Literature for postgraduate students. She has been guiding doctoral dissertations and conduct research outreach activities on gender-related issues. She has participated in drafting recommendations for empowerment of Assamese Muslim women and penned a chapter Women as Economic Force for Northeastern Council Vision 2030. Ma'am, we heartily welcome you to the event. With this, I would like to hand over the discussion to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mejabin, for that beautiful introduction. A very good morning to the panelists out here, and a hearty welcome to the audience seated here. I wish there were more male students here. It was a bit disheartening to see all the men walk out the moment the first session got over. And in fact, I think the ones who had attended the previous session on the history of a very inspiring and illustrious figure of Indian business, not only business, Indian culture and society, I should say. We are now moving on to the other session on her stories. So as you can identify with from the title or rather the theme of the session, we are basically trying to focus on the writings by women, and the writings which focus on women as, and I don't think I need to elaborate more because since you have the panelists who are all women, we are primarily discussing women writers, representing women, representing the place of women from different spheres, from different locations, I should say. So since our anchor has already made my job easier by introducing the panelists to you, I would right away go across to my panel out here, starting with the very basic question as to what is her story, or rather what is your story, because I have a feeling that we talk about stories, we are somewhere grappling with the idea of lived experiences and also the fictional element which might be there while you represent your stories on pen and paper or on any other platform, so to say. So I would start with Smriti. I would just go this way, the way they are all seated. So may I just request Smriti, and then that would go to all the three of you. I would want you all to let your story unfold as to how, I mean, maybe you would take a few years back down memory lane, walk down memory lane, go into those years when you began your tryst with writing, and where are you placed right now. So if that would help my audience also to relate with maybe your own factors which brought you to where you are today. Yeah. I think you need to switch it on.
So I am, as the introduction said, I am a Nepali Indian writer, which means half of me is Nepali and the other half of me is Indian. And that's an interesting history I share with all the women in my family. My Nani, my maternal grandmother, was a Nepali who married an Indian man. My mother was an Indian who married a Nepali man, and I am a Nepali who has again married an Indian man. So we've done this zigzag. The same also holds true for my paternal grandmother, who was an Indian who married into Nepal, and vice versa. And growing up, I did not realize how much of an impact this transmigration, this back and forth that the women in my family have done, how much it really impacted the way I think about myself, the way I think about the women in my family, and how much this has impacted the way the women in my family have actually lived out their lives, including myself, how I live out my life. And in 2006, my mom passed away. And of course, I began to keep a record of her life as a way to keep her alive and be in conversation with her. And I realized I could not write about her without writing about the fact that she was an Indian woman who married into a Nepali family. And that her life was shaped by that migration, and it was shaped by that decision. And my novel pretty much talks about that journey.
Right.
And so
Yes, yeah. Thank you. Over to you, madam.
Well, for me, writing has come to me maybe as leaves come to a tree.
It was in your genes, maybe.
It's very easy because I was grown in a family of literateurs. My father was a literary critic, is no more. My mother is a very eminent poet of the country. Very recently, she has been awarded with Padma Shri. I am happily announcing that. And I grew up with books, library books, discussion on poetry, reading books. And I was a voracious reader as a child. Maybe I didn't understand all the things that I was reading, but I was reading all the same. Maybe those pages, those lines, those idioms, those meanings have aged in my mind somewhere, and when I sat in a tranquil mood, in a pensive mood, those things came into life, and I started writing. So it's not that I have ever thought consciously that I will be writing on women, but it just came to me that it just happened. When I look back, I've been writing for past 35 years. So when I look back at the work that I've done, I feel that maybe probably a major part of the work has been on women. Maybe, because in some corner of my heart, I believe that women have to tell their own tales, have to narrate their own experiences, own feelings, the way they lived their life, the way they wanted to live their lives, their happiness, their sorrow, the feelings, these feelings of motherhood, for that matter. I mean, one example of that. And it's not that men have not given importance to what to the narrating women in their stories, but I still believe, maybe I would sound a little controversial if I say that had Mahabharata and Ramayana been written by women, probably the women characters would have been portrayed in a different way. So what I felt that I have to tell as a writer, I believe that I have been writing myself in different garbs, different colors, different idioms, and different words. But it's basically my feelings, my experiences, others' experiences that have impressed me, and the things when I feel that I have a tale to tell. So it just happened that, and one thing has always pained me, probably, I mean, it should not happen for the incoming few generation, and many of us may not agree, that I believe that women in the society have not got their due that they deserve to. The famous writer Ashapurna Devi of Bengali, she has said that a fame of a woman spreads through the few fire. Am I audible? When she's alive, probably that fame is not actually spread that way. I mean, there are so many anecdotes, and many of you are students of literature and literatures. I can see important writers here. All of have written, read so many of our good writers, women who have written on women like Amrita Pritam, Isma Chugtai, Mahasweta Devi, Manu Bhandari, our own Pratibha Rai Pratasatpathy, and we all joined the race. And Shama is here. So probably it's not that I wanted to talk about women. It just happened that they caught my attention as human beings who are so resilient, human beings, if you bury them under the earth, they will germinate and become a flowering tree. So certain kind of awe also I have as a writer. I believe a writer is genderless. And as a genderless writer, I am also in awe of women being so multitasking, so intelligent, sharp, and then so persevering. So it's been a journey with some part of writing on them and some others also. Thank you.
Yes, Shabnam, your take on this?
Hello, everyone. My name is Shabnam, and I'm a writer from South Africa, Durban. My grandfather came to South Africa in the 1930s, and so I'm basically like a second generation. And I'm living in South Africa, and I write about Indian women in South Africa, or at least most of my novels are focused on that. My first novel is about 3 generations of Muslim Indian women living in South Africa. And I think inevitably I was always going to write about women even though I didn't know it. But I became interested in writing because my grandfather, who came from, at that time, Gujarat, was always telling us stories. I think my grandmother passed away when we were quite young, so I think he was lonely. So I think his way of getting company was to call all the grandchildren around him and tell them the story. So he would tell us, in this very grand way of making the sounds, the noises, and being on the ship and on the journey from India to South Africa. And when he came to South Africa, he was so shocked that there was no electricity in his village where he had come from. South Africa had electricity, and he remembered running water. He put his mouth to the tap to drink the water, and he would tell these stories in such a wonderful way. And as a young child, you would hear stories, and I would think, oh my God, I want to tell stories like that too. And that's how I got pulled into telling stories. And my sister would take me to the library. I didn't come from a family where we were reading a lot of books, or we were being encouraged to read a lot of books. That just didn't happen. But I think my sister taking me to the library and my grandfather telling me those stories opened up this idea that the world was so much more bigger than I imagined, and that there was magic in the world. So I would go to the library and get as much books as I could and read as much as I could. And I just thought I'm going to be a writer, but I didn't realize, now I can say that I'm writing a lot about women. I think because my mother had 7 sisters, I have 3 older sisters. I've been surrounded by women my whole life. I've been hearing them talk about food and cooking and life and their husbands and the things that happen. And inevitably, I think if you're going to become a writer, that your writing turns to that. And then as I got older, so my second book is more about how I wanted to travel and I wanted to do things and see the world. But I come from a very conservative community, and your job as a woman is to just get married and have babies and don't go travel, don't write a book. This is not something you do. And so my second book is about how I try to find to be myself, which I feel like I have. But so that's what my writings are about.
Thank you. So yes, having gathered from whatever you said, I have a feeling, and also from what the kind of introduction that the anchor presented about the 3 of you, would you also like to think that since you all come from, I would say, a position of privilege, if I may, for example, Smriti had a Fulbright scholarship, Madam had a background of literature and academia. Similarly, you were into literature, and you had exposure to, though in fact there was, you did not have access to as much reading as Madam Paramita had, but perhaps you already come from a position of privilege. So does that in a way make you more enabling as a writer? Yeah, Smriti. Or rather, if you want to take it, Shabnam, we will come from the idea.
Enabling as a writer as to get other people.
Yes, I mean, to make yourself heard, to give voice to others.
I don't know if I can say my position
Mhm.
of privilege at that time, because in my family, nobody wanted me to become a
Right.
writer, and it was not something that was restricted, or they wanted me to become a doctor or engineer, and it was something I feel I really had to fight for. But that position that I'm saying I was in really encouraged me to tell younger people to pursue whatever you want to pursue, or to writing or culture or art. You know, it made me realize that you can make it happen if you don't listen to what everybody's telling you. You can actually make this a career. You can actually write about your life, and you should follow your passion. That position led me to wanting to encourage other people to follow their passion.
Okay.
That answers your question.
Yes, Madam, yeah.
I believe writing is a medium of cerebral musing. Yesterday, Damodar Mojo sir also said that, people who are educated, who have got a power to, everybody has a power to think. People can get into rebellion, revolution, nationalist movement. All the people who joined are not very educated. They are inspired. But the people who inspire, the people who write, would have to have a kind of, pardon me if I sound snobbish, have to have a kind of a cerebral, level to express the feelings, their own feelings of others into words and in an artistic manner. So by artistic manner, I want to say that you just can't put a slogan. You are not a person who is giving a newspaper reporter. You are a writer. You are an artist. So in my house, as you said, that I was held when I started writing my first story, made me so confident that I can go on. So I'm very lucky that way. And there has been a journey. And yes, the kind of education I have got, the kind of exposure I have got, and the kind of exposure professionally also I have got, though it, squeezes my kind of, physical time to write, but still then I guess the kind of exposure is very high. You get to meet people, and you to meet, go through situations, and then you if you can absorb things from that and observe, there is many. I mean, it's quite an amazing thing that I guess I am fortunate for that.
Like Shabnam, I didn't come from a background where there was a lot of reading or writing. In fact, I come from a community where when you're 17, 18, 19, a girl gets married. And I pretty much, I think, grew up thinking that maybe by 22, 23, I would be married. I had made peace with that. And I think my privilege comes from the fact that I had the parents I had. And that's not their dream for me. And my privilege comes from the fact that while I have sisters and cousins in my family who did follow that path, my parents put me through school. At the same time, I am the only daughter after 3 sons. The expectation of the sons was that they would become doctors and engineers. But the expectation from the daughter was, I think, strangely, she will live a good life. I think that was the expectation. So there was no pressure on me to become a doctor. There was a pressure on me to be educated and to be a thinking woman, but to do whatever I wanted. I think, so I fell into this space of this very gendered upbringing where education was seen as a passport to good marriage, but not essentially a career. And so when I told my parents I wanted to study literature, they said, that's a good thing to study for women, or to study. But my brother did want to study literature. That was a no. So I think my privilege was being a woman. That itself was my strange privilege in an extremely conservative community. And I realized that I am who I am because I was given the privilege of education. And so that's it. So I recognize how much of a thinking person just being educated made me.
So yeah, so what I gather from each one of you is that first of all, the sense of being, the importance of getting a woman educated, not necessarily, maybe the politics goes in out there as well to not just to educate, but maybe for a happy marriage. But I would say, you tried to make the best of it, and then so you reached out and you are where you are right now. Yes, that way, and since Madam also has said that, just because of her education or because of that position of privilege, she is perhaps been able to hone her skills, nurture and master the craft in a way. So that becomes somewhere very important, I should say, because you are also a student of literature. So I do not mean to say that anyone not doing literature will not be able to do writing, but yes, coming from a position of privilege does matter. So have you ever thought as to why women write? Have you just gone deep down and given a thought to the feeling, not necessarily about you, we've come to know as to what, but then in general, given your exposure to women's writings and also to men's writings, to see the kind of contrast that you might have observed. So why at all do women write, and for whom do they write? Who is that section of readers whom they are thinking of when maybe they are carving a character or maybe drawing a storyline? So what do you think? This time, Madam, I would want to begin from the middle, yeah.
Well, why do women write? Well, why do men write? Why do people write? Because they want to express themselves. They think that there is something in them which requires, to be communicated to the world. When I started writing, I never knew that somebody would read my piece and be happy or sad or like it or not. I just thought of expressing myself, that this is coming in my mind and I need to put it through words. Probably that is how writing starts. If my co-panelists agree with that. And women also part of human beings. If writing is there, why there should be a distinction between men and women? Yes, art, for that matter, culture and art has been a monopoly of men for a very long time. You can now also see, you can see the profile of awards, profiles of books and all. Maybe, you may not agree with me. Women had a lot of tasks to do.
Right.
I'm talking about not this generation, the generation back where we have grown up. They have had a lot of tasks to do. They have been assigned that these are your duties. You have to do this. Childbearing, child rearing, looking after the family, cooking. Lot of art and time, energy have involved in that. So they were neither allowed themselves, or they have not been allowed to look into art and culture, which is, as I said, is amusing, little different from the daily chores. And once education, awakening, awareness has been spread, probably women also understood that they have, for a dancer, for an artist, and for a writer, a vocalist, many of them have understood that they have those talents and they have to express themselves in the way they want, rather than the chores assigned to them or the works expected from them only.
Yeah. So, yes, I think Shabnam would like to take that, yeah.
And I mean, I agree with that. I think women write because why does any writer write? You know, for me to make sense of the world. And I will also add to that also to make sense of a very complex world, because I think a lot of societies that women are in, you have to be quiet and silent and not say things, and it's based on a lot of not speaking about things that you need to speak, and so a lot of writing is about giving voice and giving voice to a very complex inner world, because when you have to be quiet, there's a lot on the inside that you're thinking. And so it's so full in there in your mind. There's so much to be said that I think writing is a really beautiful way of being able to take that burden off a little and trying to express that complex inner world.
Why do women write? I think a question that's underneath is, why haven't women written so far? Why have we so few women writers? And I think, I mean, not I think, it is true that a lot of suppression of women's voices has been about power. A woman with a voice is a very powerful and a very dangerous thing. So for centuries, forever, anytime a woman has tried to express herself, there has been power at play, there has been patriarchy at play, there has been the need for men to keep the woman silent, so that their status quo is maintained. There has been immense amount of politics and violence and conscious oppression and suppression of women's voices. So when a woman writes, I think the act of writing is an act of course, reclaiming the voice, making the inner outer, but it's also a form of rebellion. And I also think women write, and Paramita was talking about how men have represented women in ways that women would not have represented themselves. And I think that's true. I think I haven't, and I'm just going to say, I have never read a book by a man which has felt true to me as a woman. Never. Never is a word I would use. I have never read a book by a man where I have felt that this guy knows what it means to be a woman. And I think women write because you know your own truth, and you know your own history, and you know the very strong power plays that oppress and keep women silent. And if you want that to be known, you have to write it yourself, because it is not in the favor of men to write it for you. Why will it favor? Why would they do that? And so I think that's why women write, because we know our own truths. And we know why our voice is silent. Nobody else will know that, or even if they know that, will want to actually reveal that. And so we write. And we must write. And we must engage in all the arts, because it is a fantastic voice to have.
Shabnam want to say something? Yeah.
I just wanted to say, you said and know that and even understand that. As you were saying it, I was thinking, you wouldn't even be able to understand what it is like not to be able to speak.
Yeah. Absolutely. I also feel that because men have for all this time and continue to be the oppressors of women, to oppress does not need too much thinking. And so you just do it. And oppression can be simply an act of violence that does not require thinking. But to be at the receiving end of oppression means you have to think about how to escape it. You're constantly thinking, you're constantly strategizing, you're constantly wondering how to get out of it. And so you know your strategies, and you know what you have done, and so you must write about it.
Yeah. So, in fact, I think all the three of us had, I mean, four of us had initially planned that we would not take it into an academic kind of an interaction. But in a way, I think we are echoing Showalters and Gilberts and Goobers everywhere when they talk about the female literary tradition. And I think somewhere down the line, we can see Plath and the language is Siksu and everyone coming in out there. So we made a deliberate decision not to bring in any kind of, theoretical underpinnings and all that, primarily to address budding writers. As Smriti put it, initially we thought it would inspire young women writers sitting out here. But yes, as she has pointed out, we also have a word for the men who want to actually strive to present the real women characters in their works. So yes, I think what I gather from your, opinions out here, women basically write, first of all, from my understanding, is that it seems very easy. I mean, it doesn't require too much of resources, so to say. For example, I remember Madam, I think, saying in an interview, I mean, she would be inspired by the fact that her mother, in the middle of all the household chores, would just, sit in a corner and write. I think I read somewhere in your interview. So it was very convenient for women, without disturbing the whole household setup, maybe to just snuggle and maybe whatever little time she had to sit and write. So first, maybe to provide solace to herself and also give vent to her, deepest anxieties, fears, suppressions, etc. That could be one. And by the time there was a lot of those revolutionary, struggles coming in. Maybe the fact that you need to also use writing as a tool as a form of resistance. And the third one, of course, to give voice to the marginalized. So these could be, the different ways reasons as to why women write, from what I gather from your conversation. So having said that, I mean, how is it that, you decide on a particular genre, taking from your personal writing? Say, for example, from whatever I have read about your book, The Woman Who Climbed Trees, I've seen that, you are referring to a woman who appeared to be a witch because she was climbing trees at night. And also I find that you have given an array of female characters, maybe very little space for male characters out there. Similarly, when I go to Madam's Aparechita Kala, isn't it? If I've pronounced it right, Abhipreta Kala. So there again, it's about the freedom struggle and the widow remarriage that you portray. And in Onion Tears, it is again the story of three Indian women of the Muslim community living in South Africa. So do you actually, while you choose these different genres, I mean, so is it a very deliberate choice, or do you just let your pen flow and take it the form as it is? And with that comes in my second part of the question. How relevant is the choice of the genre? Especially when you have your own feelings on one side, your own ideas on the other side, and also the reader. And having said that, also maybe I would like the three of you to ponder over the fact that as women, yes, men do write, but I think, or I have reasons to believe that the kind of masking and the unmasking that goes on in women's lives is far greater in comparison to men's lives. So I would like to respond to all the three parts that I have given you. Yes, madam, please.
Speak about that. Before that, I just want to make an observation, maybe for the audience also. You had given some reasons. These are the reasons women should or are writing for. But can't they just be talented? Just be writers because they have the talent to write.
Just give vent to their creativity.
At this age, why do we have to give the background that these are the reasons that women are writing?
I mean, the teacher in me comes in out there, maybe.
Of course, they do express about women, the feelings and experiences of women, which as women they do, I mean, they experience. But I'm writing because they have the knack and
Yes,
the talent.
I think
for
I was
writing.
coming to that. I was coming to the other part, I mean, the next question as to how women do, or rather, how do they fare while they take writing as a career? So that would have come in there.
Do you think that we have come of age to think that women are also human beings and they write because they have to write and they are talented? I mean, they have that talent.
Right, right, yeah, definitely, yes, I take that, yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's fair enough. So, to answer your question about whether I think of women when I'm...
Yeah, the genre, as if any specific genre that you think of while you start writing, and your own position as a woman.
I don't ever think about it from that perspective. I don't ever think I'm going to write about women. This is my intention to tell a story from a woman's point of view. But inevitably, it always comes to that, whether I intend to or I don't intend to. Also because even if I don't intend to, women are so interesting to write about. I'm just drawn to it. They're just so fun and interesting and complex. And
Any specific genre, Shabnam, would you like to refer to any, which you very easily take to?
But I don't know what I wrote you. My writing is so bad. I had a whole answer for you. But no, because my genres are all different. I have a complex drama for the first one. I have a gothic mystery for the second one. But inevitably, there's always female characters who are trying to figure out themselves. And I think even when I'm writing men characters, they are female characters. They are written, even if I'm writing a child or I'm writing an old man, somehow inevitably there is a woman in there trying to get out. I just always feel that, and I've realized, I think the more you write your characters, you realize what's happening. And even if I don't intend to, there will always, because of my background and the things I've experienced, there will always be like a searching voice in all of my characters.
Yes, I think you would like to talk about your travelogue, wherein you just mentioned to me that was the first time you broke a barrier and then you traveled alone, which was somehow a kind of a taboo for a Muslim woman, if I may recall correctly.
Yes, in my community.
Yes.
So this is the thing, I was always told, you have to get married around 22 and 23, which is what I resigned myself to. I was like, yeah, I didn't even have a problem with it. I was like, yes, I'm going to meet somebody at 22 and I'm going to get married at 23 and have babies, and this is what my life is about. And then, I kept reading, and I was 16, 17, 18, and I was reading a lot for someone from where I was, and marriage just didn't happen for whatever reason. I did want to get married, not to say I was defiantly against it, I did, but it didn't happen. And I wanted to do more. And my father was like, you cannot travel by yourself. And I was like, but the books have told me the world is waiting out there. The books are showing me there's mountains to climb and places to go. And how can I sit here with all this longing and desire in me, and I'm told that I have to stay at home because it's the best place for a woman? Like, it just seemed impossible to me. And I remember I would cry about this all the time. 21, 22, 23, 24. And the first time I traveled alone by myself was when I was 29 or 30. And this was many years of me and my father arguing because I was still living at home because I wasn't married. And the first trip I did was I went to teach in a school in Kashmir on my own. And I remember I had to go up this mountain and thinking, it was difficult for me because I came from a city and I was in this village life on the mountain. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm an adult now. Is this who I am? I can be me. I can see who I am. I recognize my shape in the world. It's not being told how I'm supposed to exist in the world by other people. And it feels so free, so this is what the book is about, like just figuring out who I am.
Mm-hmm. How I accidentally broke I think that was titled.
How I accidentally became a global star.
Yes, yeah.
Which is one of the stories.
Yes. Yes.
The genre, so my novel has lots of folk stories and lots of folk songs in it. And when I first started writing the novel, they were not a part of it. But I'm writing about a community of women from this region called the Mithila. And in the Mithila region, Murals in the form of Madhubani art, extremely common. Every woman does a mural. Everybody knows how to make one. I know how to make one. I have never learned it, but I've just watched it all my life. Every marriage has the old women, all the women from the neighborhood will come and they'll put a dhol under their thigh and then they will, bang on it and they will start singing really lusty, randy songs about absolutely embarrassing things that they would not speak about otherwise. And I grew up being very embarrassed of my mother and my, mossies and my aunts and everyone because they would be so embarrassing. And I'd be like, you shouldn't be saying such very dirty things, bad girls. But I enjoyed them so much. And as I grew up, I would look forward. That was my favorite part of any wedding, any celebration, any festival. The women would come and bang on their dhols and begin to say the darnest things. And so when I was writing my book, I realized that that in folk stories and in these very women-centric songs live the desires of women, live their resistance, live their not, you said fun, live the fun of these women. They're so playful in those songs. So I actually very deliberately then chose that genre. And I also realized that in oral storytelling, which is often told by women, and in the culture of our folk traditions, lie a very interesting reality about women. And so when I was writing my book, I began to search for them. And it was incredible when I started to search for them. I realized that I just know them because I have just heard them all my life. My mother has told me, my grandmother has told me, I sat with dhols under my own thigh and sang my own songs. And so yes, I did choose the genre of the folk and the oral, which became a part of my book, was something that I actually chose because I realized what a special space and a special thing it is. And it's dying out. Like more and more now we are all doing Sangeet and Haldi and getting everything from Bollywood and really, really killing this aspect. And it terrifies me to think that this space might go away and this playfulness and this subversiveness might go away. Yeah.
You have a wide array of genres we have experimented with. So you have written poetry, you have written short stories and the novels, and of course non-fiction. So we would love to hear as to what you would like to say.
Well, as I had said earlier, I have been writing for a very, very long time. It's been 35 years or more. So I have written around 200 stories and 3 novels, and work on a novel right now. And one book of poetry collection, and that is very, very dear to me. And I envy Salma, how could she write so many poems, and I have not been able to. About the stories, as Smriti had put it, it has everything. The storytelling, I believe, gives you a kind of ignition. Like there is a small thing, you just have to expand it a little bit, then make it a little crisp, sharp, and put it across. So it gives a kind of a sensation which is very tantalizing, and I like it. And about a novel, there is a big plot that you have to weave, and then characters come in, and you get immersed in it for a very long time. The last big one that I had written, the Vipret Kal, Time Desired, is the English translation which is going on. It's been published in Hindi also. So there, I started with I had in my, this is basically a historical novel regarding the freedom struggle of Odisha, last part of freedom struggle in Odisha, like from 1920 to 47. So my nani, my maternal grandmother and my maternal grandfather, theirs was the first widow remarriage in Odisha. At 7, my nani was married. At 9, she was widowed. and then somehow like that. So that was at the back of my mind, and then I did a bit of research and wrote. That was quite interesting, and I enjoyed doing it. I really, if at all you say that which is the most enjoyable genre for me to write is novel. So once you get into it, it actually unfolds the way for you. You just go, keep, walking into it, and then gets engulfed.
You have a wider canvas that way, maybe.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that is very nice. But poetry, comes very strangely and sharply. Like, I sometimes get up in the night, mid of the night, and then some stanza comes. Then I hover around to write it down. Otherwise, it will go into oblivion. In the morning, I won't remember this. So all these three genres are very close to me. I have not been able to write a drama, and not much of literary, criticisms. Maybe after I get a little more time, I can do that, some more non-fiction and all. But I enjoy writing stories, enjoy doing what I'm doing now.
Madam, I think the one question that I would like specifically to address you, you said your works have been translated to English as well as to Hindi. So how about, translating women's works? How about this whole exercise of translations? Have you done the translations, or is it someone else who did the translations, madam? And how has been your experience?
Well, when I write in Odia, so that is one of the regional languages and one of the Eastern languages, as you know. So when you write in a regional language, unless it is translated into the major Indian languages like Hindi and English, it can't get across to others. I mean, that is the purpose of translation precisely. And yes, I would say that I'm very happy with the Hindi translations. Somehow we are very lucky to have a very good translator who has done most of the works of Odia literature, like Ramakandra's, Pratibha Rai's, my mother's translation to Hindi. He has done mine also. But still then, there are hiccups. And in English translation, a lot of good translations are there. At least it has got across to the readers. But there are some nuances. Basically, the poems, I think, again, Salma, if she's attentive, will agree with me. So translating a good poem into English is very difficult. If you have time, I can give you an example. There is this poem of mine where, the mother-in-law is describing that the daughter-in-law is so shameless, she had hung herself from the fan. So I have written in Odia, सत्यवांती जी है तो देख देख एड़े अल्ला झुकी फैन रु झुलीची जेमिति दंडा मुंड बरगछ रज दोली परी. So all these words have a kind of a metaphor, kind of a symbol, which probably to translating it into English is difficult, but it can be got across. That is what
the context has to be translated.
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. Sometimes Raja is a very important festival of Odisha that symbolizes fertility of a woman, and Dodi is swing, is Savan ka jhula jaise. So it's a fertile woman hanging from the banyan tree like a Savan ki jhula. All these things, it's so difficult to translate into a foreign language, but still then. We do not have any other option.
You get the readership. That's very important that way. Yes, I think, yes.
Whatever.
Yeah. You would like to say anything on that? Translation.
Well, I am currently getting translated into Sinhalese and Marathi, but I do not know of the hiccups yet because I haven't encountered them. But I have realized that in the world of publishing, translation can be a tricky thing. There's, translators aren't paid very well, and so it's difficult for translators to take up a translating job and to do the job because I think just the economy of it doesn't work out. So that's something I have learned of late, how difficult it can be to get your work translated, even when you have a person who wants to translate it. Because after all, this is labor, and there isn't enough that gets done. And so maybe, to answer the question of what about translating women's work?
Yes, that's what I wanted to know,
Perhaps
actually.
there should be an organization, perhaps we should all lobby for this.
You have Zuba doing it quite to a great extent. Yeah.
Yes, so taking up, because some of our best works are hidden in small pockets of vernaculars, and if we want a larger audience and we want larger number of people to read them, we have to start translating them and make it viable for the translator.
That's true. So yes, going back to our discussion from Madam's idea of translation, I realized that three of you, if I may put it that way, you come from, I should say, a community maybe which is not at the center, not at the periphery. Say, for example, you are representing the Nepali community, for that matter. Madam is an Oriya, and then again we have Shabnam, who is a Muslim, Indian Muslim in South Africa. So how do you look at that? I mean, because, that way women's writings per se could be doubly marginalized from that way. So what is your take on this? How do you look at it? And for that matter, how do you look at other Nepali women or Oriya women or, South African, Indian women of Indian origin? So how would you look at it, the whole idea of writing from the margins? Because you become doubly marginalized that way, if I may put it that way. Yeah, please. Yes.
So yes, first, woman, but like I said, education is a great leveler in that sense, made that easier. But I do think that being a Madhesi Nepali, which is a marginalized community within Nepal itself, did make writing of the book very interesting, because then I am directly addressing the issue of marginalization. I'm directly addressing the issue of politics, power play, all of which happens because of ethnicity. Fortunately for me, perhaps the timing has been right for me, I don't know. But the fact that I was writing about, my book is about mental health of women. That itself,
The Woman Who Climbed Trees, you're talking about that book?
The book, The Woman Who Climbed Trees, is also about the mental health of women and mental marginalized women.
Right.
And that itself is also a topic that people don't want to talk about. They want to talk about the fact that women who are taking care of the men of the family are actually mentally ill, and nobody's taking care of them. They don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about depression. India has the highest number of depressed women in the world. We don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about the practices that make our women unwell. So writing about all of that is also a taboo and a marginalized subject matter. And writing it has been for me an experience that has liberated me and made things that I thought was taboo and difficult, not taboo and difficult anymore. I find it easy to talk about it simply because I've written it. And I think I'll come back to your first question, not why women write, but why write. I think in writing, you do liberate yourself. You give yourself permission to talk about things you have not given yourself permission to talk about before.
You have anyone of your contemporaries from your community who are also doing well that way or writing prominently? You would like to name anyone that way?
I am the only Madhesi woman who's writing, and I'm tremendously
I mean,
happy
that way you
about this.
deserve huge credit for being the torchbearer.
I do, and I'm very
Congratulations
happy about that.
on that, yeah.
Thank you. But we have excellent Nepali writers. I would really suggest that people pick up books by Manjushri Thapa, by Shraddha Ghimire. Her book, Wayward Daughter, is definitely amongst my favorite books. Very recently, we have a book, Kanchi, that has come out, which is set in the hills of Nepal against the Maoist revolution that took place. So we have some really strong voices coming out of Nepal. We don't have that many voices coming out of the Maithil region, the Madhesi region, which again tells you how difficult it is for marginalized communities to actually come out and do stuff like this.
Yes, madam. I think you have a very interesting background. So maybe with the question that I put to all three of you, I would also like to hear as to how your mother, because she herself is an acclaimed writer, somewhere, how does she become an influence, or does she not become an influence at all? How? Yes.
She's a great influence because when I, as a child, when I see her being absent-minded and deviating from home and not going and attending parties, I mean, generally coming back home early from a marriage gathering and all, and sit down with her notebook and paint something. And when all of us had dinner, then we are a big family, then she will sit down on the dining hall and with her, table lamp, because lest others would not wake up. And so she has written. So those things have influenced me. And the kind of mystery behind that has influenced me. And the other question about translation and how we express about women, if you allow me, I can read a poem of mine.
Definitely,
in
ma'am.
translation.
Yes, all yours. Yeah.
Have time for that?
I think that, yeah.
So I was very tempted to talk about translation because, my work can only get across all of you through translation in Hindi. This is an, am I audible? And English has been, this particular poem has been translated into English by Jayant Mahapatra, but I got the Hindi one. The title of the poem is Sari. I guess I wrote it in Odia, but I am very sure you will get the meaning will get across to you. On women anyway, I'm sorry, you can understand. 5.5 मीटर की मर्यादा से मैंने खुद को लपेट लिया है और अपनी गरिमा में उलझ रही हूँ. 5.5 मीटर की मर्यादा से मैंने खुद को लिपट लिया है और अपनी गरिमा में खुद उलझ रही हूँ. याद नहीं कभी यह मर्यादा हाथ पसार कर मांगी थी, किसी से जबरन खींच लाई थी, या किसी का लाल आंखों का इशारा था, या था सपनों में कोई उस नौजवान का घबराया सा पहला उपहार. अपने पहनावे की महिमा बखान रही थी मेरे दूसरे बहनें, उनके मन मुताबिक सुविधा, सरल, स्वच्छंद, ऐसे कुछ शब्दों की ज्यामिति, पर मैं चूप थी. कैसे समझाती उन्हें कि मेरी परिधान आध्यात्मिक है. रात को घर लौटकर नाप नूप कर उस साड़ी के कई टुकड़े किए और हर टुकड़े को मंत्र पढ़ कर उड़ा दिया. रात को घर लौटकर नाप नूप कर उस साड़ी के कई टुकड़े किए और हर टुकड़े को मंत्र पढ़कर उड़ा दिया. एक टुकड़ा उस कबाड़ बटोरने वाली औरत की फटे घाघरे में पाबंद लगाने के लिए, एक बलात्कार के बाद गांव के अमराई फेंके गए नंगे शव को ढकने के लिए, एक बड़े अस्पताल में वर्म्स वार्ड में दहेज न लाने वाली नई नवेली के लिए रखे 10 नंबर खटिया के चादर बनने को, और आखिरी टुकड़ा 5 सितारा होटल में 5 ग्राहकों को शराब परोसने वाली लड़की के इतनी सी छोटे बख्श बंधन में सिले जाने के लिए. सुबह देखा सब टुकड़े लौट आए हैं और फिर से जुड़कर मुझे सर से पांव तक ढकने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. मेरे पेट, छाती और पीठ का, मेरा पेट, छाती और पीठ का तब भी कुछ हिस्सा दिख रहा है इतनी लंबी साड़ी भी जिसे छिपाने को कम पड़ रही है.
Very touching, madam. I mean, the whole metaphor of the stereotypes and along with that, the idea of feminist sisterhood, I think, comes in out there. But indeed, it's very touching, I should say. And I think that very conveniently takes me to Shabnam and how she would like, because she said that, she's writing about the Indian community in South Africa, but at the same time, we cannot forget the Muslim identity. And so far, Onion Tears is concerned, you are talking about three women of three different generations and their predicament as Muslim Indian women in South Africa. So how does, and how do you look at, the writing from the margins? Yeah.
So I think for me, I was thinking, I didn't even realize it, but I was writing a lot about the complexity of being a South African Indian, and then it became about South African Indian Muslim women. And what does that mean? Because you're caught between two very strong cultures, South Africa and India. And, it changes with the generations also, which is what I was trying to capture with that first novel. It was 3 generations of women. And obviously, the first generation, she's a grandmother and she longs to go back to India. She's like, what am I doing on the tip of Africa? Why am I here? These are not my people, And yet the second generation, she thinks, she doesn't have the same, she's actually rebelling and like, I'm completely South African, while the third generation is almost like, can I find a way to get the two to work together? Can I be both, which is the next question for the next generation. So I think that's what I was trying to explore, writing from the margins. What does it mean to be two cultures? The first generation knows more about partition than apartheid, but the next generation knows more about apartheid than partition. And the language is being lost as well. Like my parents speak better Urdu than me. So what does that mean? So I think I'm trying to talk about that sense of identity and the complexity of that through the generations from my community. And also just talking about things like the mixture of language, like my auntie, my auntie who passed away she used to talk a language that was a mixture of Zulu, Afrikaans, Urdu. In one string of words, it was one language to her because she'd taken on the local language and she brought the language that she knew and she made it into her own language, and to try to capture that, to also show other regions of South Africa, to show my community, which seemed so strange and to me from the rest of the community, but also to show how we're changing, integrating, and become part of it. And so that's how I was trying to write from the margin.
Great. I think we are almost about to wind up, but just one last question to all the three of you. So you all are doing excellent in your field. So how would you like to talk about, maybe if I give you maybe 2 to 3 words in which you would like to describe your way of representing women? So each one of you. So have you ever thought as to, if I may say, okay, this is Smriti Ravindra's style of representing women, or Paramita Satpathy representing women. So have you ever given thought to it? And maybe just very quickly before we open the floor to the audience, yeah.
Just to say that in my latest novel, I have a character who is a woman who just exists for herself. I don't need to write her as somebody in relation to a husband or a relation to a child or a relation to anything. And I loved writing this character. It's so rare to see in real life or in fiction a woman who exists just for herself. She says what she wants, she does what she wants, she lives how she wants. And it was the best thing, and that's how I just want to always write women.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Great. So you are what you are, and that's the best part of it, yes.
More or less same for all of us. I like diving into the mind of my character and giving her a long and path to walk. Let her walk her own way and let her have her own life.
I'm going to plagiarize and I'm going to use your word. And I think complex is the
Yes.
word I would say, because I think, again, plagiarizing from Shabnam, the world a woman inhabits is complex. And so her being is complex. And I think if I can succeed in translating that complexity in words, I will consider myself successful. Because I think that's a difficult thing to do.
And also,
Sure.
I would like to add is the layers.
Mhm.
The layers that I can give to a character,
Yes,
different
yeah.
layers. That I am very happy I get to do that.
So basically, when we talk about her stories, what I can gather from this conversation is the kind of layering dose that goes into, presenting a character or maybe women as they should be from their heart. I mean, speaking out their heart and standing for themselves. That is how you would like to represent her stories. Paramita Satpathy, Smriti Ravindran, and Shabnam Khan, great. I mean, it has been a wonderful experience moderating this session, and we literally look forward to, before we open the floor to the house, I think on my personal behalf, I would be literally now following your work and then taking a closer look at all the work, just as our audience would be doing that. So I'm good from my side. I think we have just little time to open the floor for questions, if there are any from the audience. Yes, Mejabin, I think you would like to come in here. If they have any questions.
So, is there any questions for our esteemed dignitaries seated over the dais? Any questions from the audience? Yes, please, somebody.
Hi, I have a sort of a comment and a question tagged on to that. The panel is her story, and I was noticing that, we see this over and over again at various literature festivals all over the world. There is almost never a panel on his story, because that is obviously the universal experience. The assumption is that when men write stories, when men write anything at all, they write of everyone, and when women write of anything, it is about women. So I wanted you all to respond to that firstly. And secondly, I was wondering if I could also ask you about how do you resist the being put into these boxes of a woman writer, or do you resent of the assumptions that go with you being put into that box of writing about women and women's lives, etc.?
Can I answer? Because as I said, I have been the oldest in the among the writers here. I do not believe that there should be a compartmentalization of a woman writer and male writer. Her story is a different thing. I can, out of the arena of writing, I can put some stories for her and some stories for him and some stories for everybody. So, there is no reason to be put or compartmentalized for to be women writers, but maybe because the art scenario has been a dominance by writers who are not women so far, any field of literature, culture for that matter. So this has been done to encourage them. Even I remember my mother, who is now 80, she also rejects this. Why tell me that I am a woman writer? So we are writers who maybe have focused on women for our personal, fascination, personal liking,
Resonance,
and way
maybe,
of our
yeah,
experiences and narrating our experiences. Men do narrate their experiences, and our great poet Ramakant has written Sri Radha. So it's not that man cannot write on a woman or a woman cannot write on men, but when it comes to narrating our own experiences, own feelings, we I believe that we have an age over that. That's all I can say. And your first question was what?
I just wanted you to respond to that, whether you resent that and whether,
Yeah,
the
that's
fact that men's experiences are everybody's experiences.
No, not exactly that. It is, everybody's experiences, but we over time did feel that certain stories of women, you agree with us that women definitely were backstage for a very long time. So what is happening among them, what is happening in their mind, it's not easy to be seen by the actors, even if they are very talented, they are very intelligent, very articulate. So, those stories are also to be told. So that is what I have from my experience for long and from my experience of my mother, I do feel that. Anything?
I actually really like being the woman writer, and I like the distinction. I don't resent it at all, and because for the simple reason, because I feel that men's stories are not everyone's stories. They are men's stories, and they have constantly told men's stories. And for that, I like it that I think of myself as a woman's writer. I think of my work as women's work, because I am consciously then thinking about women. I am quite sure men are very comfortable being called writers, because the assumption there is that men is normal. If female was normal, then men wouldn't have liked to be called men writers. And because I know that there's that assumption under that thing, I actually like being the woman writer writing women's stories, because I don't think men are writing women's stories or have ever done that.
And I'll just add to that, I agree with everything you're saying. I don't know if I usually get put under women's stories, because my genres are different, like more gothic mystery, and but like I have now, and I've enjoyed it so immensely, like purely for this moment where Smriti said something about what it's like to that internal world of not being able to say something. And I just felt in this moment on the stage like this understanding. I knew what she was talking about, and we knew what was being said, that unsaid thing. And just to have that recognition of that unsaid thing on the stage in front of everyone was so special. To just even have that moment, I would glad Wonder Woman writer.
So any more questions? Yes, please provide sir with the mic.
Well, Madam Smriti, when you said you have not read a single story written or novel written by a man about authentic novel about women, I don't agree with it. In that case, do you believe that no women have written anything authentically about men?
No, I don't. I think women write very authentically about men.
No, please. But I personally think, never differentiate on gender about writers. Writers are writers. There are no male writers, no female writers. When you write, you are a writer. That's what I believe it. Maybe there was a time earlier that men were not allowing, or rather the female counterpart was not coming out openly about writing. I am very proud to say that I am what I am today as a writer is because of my mother and other female members of my family. It is the mother who tells the stories to children, not father. So stories originate with women, not with men. So I personally feel I'm happy that women are writing, coming with their new books, their creations. And I'm very happy to welcome them as equals, not as female or feminine writers.
I'm really glad you feel that way, but I think when I get to your position, I will be very happy to welcome male writers as male writers, and perhaps not as equals, because our experiences are very different. So,
I think all of you have already reached there. Please accept that you are equals.
Yes, just some time back I said that I am a general list writer. Certain tenets about women attract me because of many multifarious lives they live and the layers they have in life and the things they haven't been told. In fact, I don't think, Leo Tolstoy's Anna Karenina can, any other book has surpassed about women than that. Anyway, I mean, this is
I take Sir's point in the right spirit, and then also acknowledge the fact that they have been doing excellent work as authors, not as women writers, if I may use your words. But I wish to also at the same time acknowledge the kind of back effort that has gone into. Maybe their men might have a position of privilege. For example, the kind of background work that goes in for a woman is a great deal more in comparison to what a male author might have to go through. So I think, Madam, and all I was trying to bring that in, the kind of masking, unmasking, role playing that women go through, do every day in their lives is perhaps much more in comparison to. So yes, they have reached, but the road has not been all rosy. That's what maybe puts the point. Thank you. Yeah.
I'll just add to that also. Just to say, I personally think men can write women and women can write men. But I think it is easier for it is easier for a woman to write a man because we see the world through a man's gaze all the time. So it comes easier.
Also, I feel for example, I want to say that I am a South Asian writer. I don't, I say I am a Madhesi writer. I say that. I claim for myself that I'm a Nepali writer, I'm an Indian writer, I'm a Madhesi writer, I'm a South Asian writer. I don't see why then saying I'm a female writer is so problematic. And why is it not just as much about taking ownership of who you are as when we call ourselves South Asian writers or we call ourselves Indian writers? Do we not make that narrowing down of identity when we are doing that?
Yes, please. Any more questions?
I think there's one out there. Yeah, sure.
Hello. Yeah, I'm Yojana Rawat, story writer from Chandigarh, from Punjab. I think I also write stories, and when I write a story, it's never in my mind whether I'm going to write about a female or about a male. It's just my experience of my own inner journey and the experience of the outer world that I come across. So I think as a writer, we own this responsibility to consider our character just as human beings, Of course, being a female, our concerns are deeper and we can feel that sensibility because we experience all these things personally. So, of course, it will definitely add to what we write and to our experience. But as a human being, I think as a sensitive writer can also feel the same sensibility about women as a woman would feel. So I think we should, but I don't disagree with you that in case you are doing writing, women's writing intentionally, there's no harm and it should be respected that you carry that title that I'm a women writer. No objections to that. But I think we should not categorize that as a women writer, one can write better about women, or as a male writer, one can write better about male. I think a writer is writer and we are sensitive. And above everything, I think the journey of human life is the main concern of all the writers. Thank you.
Any more questions? So, can somebody assist the mic? Yeah.
I think it basically boils down the issue of interiority. I think in most cases, women writers get the mind of a female character much better, unless there is a maestro handling it. Same thing cannot be said about Leo Tolstoy or Marcel Proust, etc. But the getting into the mind of a woman is much better by a woman writer. That is my feel. because I'm not a maestro. Okay.
Any more questions? Okay, so with this, we have come to the end of our today's session. So first and foremost, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude and a sincere thank you to all our esteemed dignitaries seated over the dais for sharing their experience and providing us with their valuable perspectives. At the same time, I'd also like to thank our wonderful audience for your keen interest and presence in this session. It has added an immense value. I'd also like to appreciate the efforts of our students, volunteers, and the whole team behind the scene who has worked in order to execute this event as a successful one. And as we conclude, so let us take the perspective and the knowledge that we have gained today. I hope the discussion inspires the session inspires deeper discussion and valuable perspectives in the near future. So with this, I thank everyone.